That's ChatGPT.
That was the joke. Good product placement.
Everyone's afraid of Mary Lou. Yes?
Are we good, Mary Lou?
All right. Good evening. Welcome to the May 30th regular meeting of the Rockville Center Board of Education. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. There are evacuation exits on either side in the back. Any correspondence that can be posted has been posted. One note, Ms. Messier is running, she'll be here in a little bit. She just had a work conflict, so she's on her way. Mr. Gavin, I will turn it over to you for update on the annual budget vote and Board of Education elections, seeing no students here this evening.
Thank you. We are so grateful to our Rockville Center community for the support of budget this year. We are thankful to our parents, our community members, our faculty and administrative staff for putting together a program that we believe supports our students, supports them in a robust way, and gives them opportunities to excel in any manner, any number of different areas. So we're super excited for that. The budget did pass. It passed robustly. Madam President, congratulations on being reelected again. Trustee Messier, congratulations on being reelected again. And for the first time in a long time, we're going to have the same board members for several years in a row. So we are super excited about that because we have a great team. So thank all of you for your volunteer time and service to the community. And we are excited for an exciting 24-25 school year.
Thank you. On behalf of the board, we would also like to thank the community for coming out to support the budget.
One more final note.
Yeah.
Mrs. Celebrity just continues to dominate
Yes.
all areas of budget votes. So
Agreed.
our board clerk, district clerk, has done an amazing job.
Yes.
I might get in trouble for doing that later, but it's well worth saying. It's well worth saying. I'm glad she's not
Yes.
can't see me eye to eye because she'd be mad at me right now. But Mary Lou's just an amazing person. She's so hyper organized, and our budget process runs flawlessly every year. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate all of Mrs. Flanagan and everyone else that helped out that night to make sure that we can do our election free, fair, and transparently.
Agreed. We get to see the magic of Mary Lou Celebrity every single
We
day,
do.
and I'm glad that the community gets a glimpse of that on election day as well. So thank you for everything. You're the best. Okay, Mr. Gavin, Superintendent's report.
Thank you. Madam President, we would like to move up our personnel appointments this evening. Usually we wait till later on in the board meeting, but we have a special guest with us here tonight. It is my honor to recommend to the board for approval Mr. Patrick McGuire as our next Director of Physical Education, Health, and Athletics for our Rockville Center School District. Mr. McGuire is currently the Director of Athletics for the New Hyde Park Memorial High School and concurrently serves as Chairperson of Health, Physical Education, and Family and Consumer Science. Mr. McGuire also serves as both the Unified Sports Coordinator for Section 8 and the Assistant Boys Lacrosse Coordinator as well as a liaison for the Special Olympics. His background and his experience have prepared him well for this role. And I do want to share, as we did, Mr. Murphy and I did our background check. So we try to make sure that we contact people, before we hire them and do a thorough background check. And these were some of the comments that were given to us as part of his background check. Sleep well, you're getting a rock star. the hardest working man in this building. In 30 years, I could not give a higher endorsement of anyone else. And most importantly, he puts kids first. So that last piece, Mr. McGuire, is what we are super excited about. We certainly like that we get a rock star and that you're a hardworking guy. But the fact that you put kids first means that you're a good fit for us, because that's what we want here. So, Madam President, if we're okay, we'd like to vote on the PAR and his appointment.
Absolutely. Can I have a motion to pass the PAR?
So moved.
Second? Second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Welcome, Mr. McGuire. I think we're going to take,
Mr. McGuire, if you're okay with it, we'd like to do a little photo op in front of your first Cyclone banner. So we have one set up for you outside tonight, and we'd love to do a little picture outside and hit that onto Cyclone Nation for us.
And before
Great.
we do that, I just want to say on behalf of the board, welcome. This community is very eager to get to know you, and we are excited for all the great things that you're going to do for our students.
All right. Give me that one. That's the dance in the field. Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Gavin, I think you had some other items?
I do. I have a couple more things in our superintendent's report. All good news, all new programs. So last meeting, we were glad to be joined by several students that wish to advocate for more opportunities for dance here in the district. I am pleased to recommend to the board for approval a new dance club at Southside High School for next year. We would like the club to prepare and perform at events identified by the club advisor and the club participants. This would not be a tryout-based club. One of the things that's very important in any new activity is to have robust participation. We also want to make sure that this club and cheerleading work cooperatively on scheduling and choosing the events that they would perform at. And I feel that there's room for both of these activities and would like them to work together. I would like to tell the ladies that the board and I truly value student participation and voice in shaping the activities that we have here in Rockville Center, and I'm hopeful that next year's club can lead to further opportunities for dance in our curriculum. So if everyone's okay with that, I would also like to make another announcement. Mr. McGuire next year will have another new challenge in addition to learning our district, because I would like to say we've talked about the fact that we have money in our budget for a new sports program. I would like to recommend to the board a new junior varsity field hockey team here at Southside High School. We would approve the use of funds that were allocated already in the budget to create this new team. We have much work to do to get ready for the season, but I feel confident after speaking to both Mr. Rosetto and Mr. McGuire that we can get this off the ground and up and running for our field hockey participants next fall. So that's my report for this evening.
Okay. And we'll continue to keep the community updated and the board updated as those two things progress.
Of course.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, turning to the public hearing for the Code of Conduct, Mr. Gavin?
We have Ms. Love, who's been in charge of reviewing our review of the Code of Conduct. So we would like to, if the board has any questions on it, Ms. Love would be more than happy to respond to those questions. Any questions on code of conduct? Jean,
Okay.
you want to just talk 5 seconds about the process?
So we had a committee that represented the community. Board member, thank you, Dr. Downing, for participating. We had 2 students who participated, as well as representation, elementary, middle, and high school, mental health staff, and administration. We went through the code of conduct very thoroughly, and for the most part, it remains intact. There were 4 minor changes that were made that we reviewed over time. We reviewed with our attorney, Mara, who's here tonight, and made those adjustments accordingly. So would you like me to go over what the changes were, or? Okay. So there was 4 main changes. One, we changed the overall language in the document so that it was non-gender specific, referring to students not as he or she, but as the student. Same thing with staff members and or parents. Another change that was made, we added to the list of technological infractions, we included the inappropriate use of AI tools, just to keep it updated and current with current technology. And then our dress code was somewhat specific with regards to lengths of shorts and skirts that was also somewhat outdated. And so we just removed the length and just left it as more general appropriate clothing for students without a specific length of shorts or skirts. And then in our drug and alcohol offense, there were very specific recommendations for suspensions and time that students would be removed from extracurricular activities. And we use more general language with that so that where, of course, we take these offenses very seriously. The actual time that students would serve for suspensions or time out of a sport or activity could be left to the building administrator's judgment.
Thank
And
you.
those were the changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Love, and thank you to the committee. Thank you for including student voice on the committee. I know that was something that we had asked for, and I would like to also echo on behalf of the board, thank you to Dr. Downing for representing the board on that committee and for all of the work that went into reviewing and revising. Opportunity for visitors regarding the code of conduct only. Okay. Item is for information. Mr. Gavin?
Tonight, we are presenting on one of our goals, our final presentation on the MTSS process. As the board knows, this is year 2 of our rollout of this process. So we've asked Ms. Love, Dr. Moriarty, and Mr. Zappia to come up to explain some of the work that we've been able to get done this year towards meeting this goal.
First, I would like to say thank you to the Board of Education and to Mr. Gavin for inviting myself, Ms. Love, and Mr. Zappia up again to discuss our work. We are merely representatives of our faculty and our administration that have been working diligently on crafting our MTSS, or multi-tiered system of support. We have been working for 2 years on this project. It has been a board goal for the 2 years, and we're really excited tonight to share with you the progress that we have made. So just a reminder to the board and to our community here and at home, MTSS is a system, and it is an evidence-based framework for supporting students' needs that really capitalizes on focusing on 4 areas: academics, social skills development, behavior and attendance, as well as mental health. It is a 3-tiered system of support that is grounded in core instruction, as you can see on the sideways triangle, that then is supported with more strategic support and more intensive support. So the components of an effective MTSS system are listed here. So again, it's based on core universal instruction, both academic and behavioral. We're going to talk about a little bit of that tonight. Assessment protocols that include screening and progress monitoring, We're going to, again, talk about that this evening as well. It is also a continuum of strategic and intensive interventions grounded in data-based decision-making, as well as professional development and family and community engagement. So at the beginning of this school year, we outlined our success criteria, and that is what we're going to speak to today. We thought that we would be successful by the end of this school year if we were able to progress monitor our Tier 3 learners. We were able to make informed decision-making that was data-driven with timely parental communication where we can talk about a student's strengths, their growth, and their next steps, and if we were proactively supporting all of our learners.
Interventions are prescribed with clear goals and monitored with an ongoing frequency. Our progress monitoring tools work from macro to micro, with the frequency and specificity increasing as the interventions increase. So, for example, all of our students participate K through 8 in the NWEA assessment, and that's given 3 times a year. As we provide interventions for students, so those are our Tier 1 students. Our Tier 3 students who are receiving possibly interventions every other day, every day possibly as a Tier 3 student, we will monitor them with AIMSWIP, which is much more specific to a student's need, and the frequency could be, again, as often as weekly to make sure that that student is making growth and the intervention is appropriate for them. So progress monitoring, again, we have a tool like NWEA that we can assess our entire student body 3 times a year, down to a progress monitoring tool that can be very specific for our Tier 3 students, and that could be conducted weekly. So we're really happy with the progress that we've made. The staff's been wonderful in working with us on this progress monitoring tool and the implementation of that, and we're hoping that next year our goal would be to progress monitor our Tier 2 students as well. And informed decision making. So just to get a little bit more specific about how this would work, if we identify a student that has a need in a specific area, we'll create a goal for that student. We'll work together to figure out what is the best way to address that goal and support the student with an intervention, and then how are we progress monitoring that. So just to give us a basic example, if a student is having difficulty with phonemic segmentation, let's say, for example, we might say that student's going to have a specific intervention 3 times a cycle using Alconin squares, which are little boxes that help students manipulate sounds. That could be their intervention, and we may monitor their growth with AIMSWeb every other week, let's say. So it would be that specific. And that's really what we've been working on all this year with our Tier 3 students. And then looking at parent communication and collaboration. So we know that any good intervention process or any strong MTSS plan has the collaboration of everyone, including the parents. So this year, we assessed our students, we identified students who required Tier 2 and Tier 3 support, and parents were notified when the IST team met to prescribe a plan for their child. Our goal is that next year we include every parent in the beginning of the school year in helping us create the plan for their child, so that they're part of the process. They can talk about what their concerns might be, what their hopes are for their child for the year, and we could work collaboratively, because whether it's working on comprehension at home, when we're reading with our children outside of the school day, they might know what types of questions, we can give them strategies to work on with their children at home, but also for behavioral support. So if a student is working with our PBIS plan, let's say, and they have a specific tool that they're using, they might be able to have that same tool at home where they're earning for positive behavior. And again, it's keeping it positive, it's aligning it home and school, and supporting our students. And so that's how we're hoping to improve our parent communication next year, by including our parents in those first meetings at the start of the school year.
So at those team meetings that we talk about our learners and we start to develop plans specifically with a goal in mind with the intervention and picking the progress monitoring tool, we also begin to design what their day and what their week would look like. And here's an example of a sample student instruction and intervention schedule. So reading it from the top down, you'll see the orange from 9 o'clock to 9:45 could be the Tier 2 intervention, where the AIS provider, be it, in this case, it's reading, is co-teaching or team teaching with the classroom teacher, providing small group instruction and support for that child or group of children. Then during the WIN period, they then would go and they would work on their individual goals or even smaller group. There might be 2 students or 3 students that are working on the same goal, and they would be working together with their AIS provider in a very small setting with very intensive support. Then, and that's in red. And then what you see in green would be their core instruction, which you see here, they are not pulled from their core instruction. They're receiving their word study, their knowledge-based inquiry units, of course, their math, and again, their knowledge-based inquiry units, at which point also in the inquiry units, there would be not only reading and exploration, but writing as well. In this particular case, this was one of the meetings where we did have one of the parents attend with us, and they were able to help us craft the goals and set a schedule and create something that was really beneficial for the child, and they were a part of the entire process. And it was at that moment that we realized really all of our students who require Tier 3 support would benefit from using this kind of model and us using that as a goal for next year. So all of our work is kept on Branching Minds. Branching Minds is a tool for us. We presented a little bit about this in the past. So a lot of what you're going to hear tonight, are things that you've heard in the past from various different presenters and committee members. So here is an example of our collaboration across Branching Minds. So making sure not only our goals and our intervention and our progress monitoring are in the system for each individual child, but also every single time that we have a meeting around the child, as well as all of the family communication. What this allows us to do is that any person, any teacher, faculty member, or administrator that is working with a child can easily see what has been going on and what the goal and the plan is, and can speak from a place of strength around what is happening with that child. So when we're looking at the proactive support, it's important for us to really think about what MTSS is and how to look at it, and moving from a triangle to more of a diamond shape. So everything starts with Tier 1 core instruction. That is the central foundation of everything, and everything emanates from there. So on the right-hand side, we see, and to use Jen Pasquarello's phrase, we want to both support and challenge, right? So on the right-hand side, we see how we're challenging our learners, and we heard about those kind of things when Mr. Zappia spoke with us one of the last times he presented about passion projects and about MAP Accelerator. So those are just 2 examples of ways in which that we can challenge our learners. Then on the other side, you see how we can support our learners through our targeted intervention, as well as our intensive intervention. Today, specifically, we were talking more about, prior to this part of the presentation, our Tier 3 support and how we have created those goals, the intervention that are evidence-based, and the progress monitoring. And again, like what what Ms. Love was saying, is that for next year, we would want to make that more formal for our Tier 2 learners. Not to say that that's not already happening, but to make sure it's in the system, that we can all easily gather this information and speak to a child. So when we talk about core instruction, we also need to think about our approaches to teaching and learning. So what we did at the elementary level, and what we will focus on in the upcoming months at the secondary level, is our master scheduling and our class scheduling. So get that in place where we can make sure students are not missing their core instruction, that we can utilize the support as well as the professional members that we have on our staff in a very effective way. Now we can move to core instruction and our approaches to teaching and learning. So moving more away from what we're teaching to how we're teaching it. How are we differentiating? How are we meeting the needs of all of our learners during that core time? We're going to go into that in 1 second. Also, the system and structure that we want to make sure that we have across the board K-12 is collaboration for all of the staff members that are working with a student, and all of the administration that also is in a building that is working with a child. And then and with the parents. And then the communication is fluid between what's happening in the building, the class level, and also to the parents and with the parents. So when we're thinking about our instruction, and that's where I want to zone in right now around the approaches to teaching and learning, I want us to look at the New York State Literacy Initiative that has, just come out with the literacy briefs. And when we look at it, we're going to again read it from top to bottom. And in here, we're talking about the high impact instructional practices that help us develop the Big Six. So the Big Six are very similar to what we presented on perhaps 2 years ago when we were talking about the science of reading with phonics, phonemic awareness, fluency, comprehension, vocabulary. And so how are we developing those Big Six across the day K-12? So things that we want to look at are the enabling structures and processes that we already currently have. And so let's look at comprehensive knowledge building units. So in our K-5, we now have in 3, 4, 5, our integrated inquiry units. In the middle school, we have our MYP units, and in the high school, we have our IB for 11th and 12th grade. When we're looking at differentiated and culturally responsive sustaining pedagogy, we do things in math in the K-5 world called the 3-act math task, which is a very fun and play-based way to have students practice their math skills as well as differentiate for the different levels of learners. In the middle school, they have engaged in a collegial circle where they are learning how to work with the concept building thinking classrooms, which asks teachers to think about 6 protocols that they can employ within their class period at any various points of their class period in order to get the kids up and thinking and working in randomized groups in order to facilitate more thinking around math. Then in the ELA, we have been working on book clubs where students have student choice over the books that they want to read. They engage in book clubs and they work through progressions at their own rate, where teachers are conferencing with them and working with them to help them move them along the progression of critical thinking within a text. Then when we look at research and routines for collaborative and independent study, Mr. Zappia spoke about our passion projects that we are nurturing at the younger grades. In the middle school, we have our service component of MYP, and in the high school, we have Assess. So these are just some of the things that we're doing at the core level that allows us to see that we're engaging in these high-impact instructional practices that are supporting our Big Six. Now, if we want to look specifically at secondary, in the core instruction area, ELA for grades 6 through 8 and 11R have been working on book clubs and progressions, as we have just talked about before. The science teachers, both in the middle school and the high school, have been working on the shift to the New York State Science Learning Standards, which is asking them to think about and plan differently for their instructional design and implementation, as well as assessment shift. Math, we've engaged in a 6 through 8 alignment, and right now we are also working on our geometry alignment to the next gen standards. Specifically around professional development, social studies and ELA engaged this year in a brain-based approaches with a consultant that we have brought in to increase student engagement. Science has been working again and has had collegial circles, as well as a professional come in to talk about the shifts in to NISLIS and how that would impact their pedagogy, and actually starting to plan this year and make those shifts. Then for literacy, Our administration from the secondary level are engaged in taking the Keys to Literacy comprehension routine or the Keys to Beginning Reading, depending if they're the younger guys. And the secondary are all taking the Keys to Literacy comprehension. And we're also engaging in taking the Writing Revolution, which is the Hockman method, which helps us with our writing foundational skills. So I would like to, say to the administration, thank you very much for engaging in these professional development opportunities, because it will further help us be able to help our staff members with ensuring a good implementation of these strategies.
So people ask, what's the difference between RTI and MTSS? And MTSS is really about the whole child. I think for a long time, RTI was in place, and it was really about specific academic interventions. But of course, we know that we're educating the whole child, and that the social, emotional, and behavior needs of children and their ability and their readiness to learn is just as important. And so that's really the wraparound with MTSS. And so with that in mind, I wanted to share a little bit about our social, emotional, and behavioral support district-wide. In a little bit, the wonderful Mr. Zappia will be talking about a program he piloted this year in his elementary school at Riverside, PBIS, Positive Behavior Intervention Support. It went so beautifully. We're really excited. That will be in all 5 elementary schools next year. We've met with other principals. We have a wonderful plan in place, and he's going to share some of that information with you in a few minutes. But prior to that, I thought it might be nice to just fill you in a little bit about what is going on at the secondary level and how we're supporting our students currently and the plans that we have for next year as well. So we know that research shows one of the most impactful supports that we could provide our students is to have a trusted adult in school. And a lot of the work that we've been studying, even as part of our follow-up to our Code of Conduct review, we're looking at things like restorative practices. That's one of the #1 recommendations, is that students have a trusted adult and someone they feel that they can relate to in their school. And so, of course, our Sources of Strength program supports that. We know that our middle school has an advisory period where students get an opportunity to have that daily contact with a staff member. We provide intervention support. Counseling, counseling is through the IEP if you happen to be classified. It can also be listed on a 504 plan. But we have many, many students that participate in group counseling, social groups, and individual counseling as a non-mandated service and support, just as part of their overall intervention support to help them meet their academic goals and support them through their journey. This year we've enjoyed, and I know when I shared when Mrs. Ramsey, our Director of Guidance and Counseling, was here with me a few weeks ago, we talked about some of the improvements made to our orientation programs, our articulation meetings. We know that students who are transitioning from one building to another, that can be a very anxiety-producing experience for kids. And the more that we can familiarize them with where they're going, where they're headed, what the plan is, and the more we can help them find comfort in the transition, knowing that they're leaving a wonderful place, but they're going to a wonderful place, will reduce that transition time for them when they get to their new school. We offer peer mediation, homework helpers, social emotional learning assemblies. We've also, in the last few years, developed our Aaron's Law program, and of course, our DASA support that we provide with training for our students and staff. So some new additions to our support that we anticipate will be for next year. Again, all building administration participated in a restorative practices training yesterday that was provided through Nassau BOCES. And that's really focused on looking at the function of behavior and developing trust, again, with trusted adults in the building. So, for example, one activity that they suggested that we implement next year would be to have every student in every one of our schools write down one trusted adult from their building, and to have a faculty meeting or meeting actually, with everyone in the building to say, did you know that this child sees you as their trusted adult, and make sure that the trusted adult is aware of that. But also, were there any children that didn't have someone to put down? And how are we ensuring that we then help those children find connections with someone in the building? And so that was just one activity of many that came out of our training yesterday that we will embark on come the summer and train our staff as well so that we can really support our students. And with that comes alternatives to suspension. So a student is chronically late to a particular class. It could be that student might get a referral for that, but it could also be we're having a restorative practice speaking to that student. Is there a reason why you're late? Are you in duress? Is it an executive functioning issue? And how can we help them with that? And just really getting to the source of how we can help our students, again, in a positive way. So it's really like another form of positive behavior support, and we may not see a token economy, for example, that we might see with a younger child developmentally. This is more appropriate, and that's why we're all very eager to embark on this training and turnkey it to our schools next year. In addition, we'll have a Teen Intervene program, which is a drug prevention program that students are trained, and there's mentorship involved, and our social workers at the middle and the high school are going through that training right now. We're hoping to improve our executive functioning support for our students, organization, planning out tasks, long-term assignments, things like that. Sources of strength next year, secondary and elementary are looking to coordinate activities where our older students work with our elementary students on various projects, again, to make connections for our students and get them vested in continuing our culture, I should say, of positivity. We're looking at customizing our support classes, our math resource center, and I mentioned the alternatives to suspension. And so those are some of our hopes and dreams for next year. How do we progress monitor social, emotional, and behavioral support? It's so different than using something like Ames Web for an academic task. So we're really looking at meeting and talking about kids. We're doing that now. It's really important to note that. But I think we're looking at aligning the way that we meet and collect data on our students in the middle and the high school. Recently, I was at a PPS meeting at the middle school. I really enjoy going to these meetings. They're held weekly, and they have a list of students they speak about. There's representation from all of the areas of PPS in the meeting: guidance, social workers, psychologists, of course, the building principal, assistant principals. And we go down the list of students, and we'll talk about a student and say, who's the person that this student is most connected to? What is the support that they need? Is the parent aware? Are they on board? What's their input on the situation? And a plan is made for that student, and the following week, the professional who's responsible for following up, could be a group of professionals, report back. And sometimes the student is taken off the list because just within that 1 week they're doing much better. Or perhaps, okay, we've accomplished what we set out to do this week, but what's the plan for the student for the upcoming week? And takes a lot of time. It's a couple of hours every week that we spend sitting and looking at students and putting in interventions for them. But it yields such wonderful outcomes. And I know the high school, who also has similar meetings to this, we're just looking to align the practice, the way we collect the data, and meeting weekly next year, both in the middle and the high school, will really help us support our students. So that's just to give you a little bit of an idea of what that looks like now and where we're looking to go with that for next year. As well as collecting all the data on this list that we get from everywhere. From Northwell will give us feedback on students that were seen and what they may have been seen for, just so we get a sense of any patterns that might be happening, down to our building behavioral data or referral data that, of course, we take into consideration. But again, I think we're looking at working from a positive asset-based approach in supporting our students and thinking about what they need and making sure that they get that support. And on that note, I will turn it over to Mr. Zappia, who can talk about the work that we're doing at the elementary level.
Thank you, Ms. Love. Good evening, Central Office. Good evening, Board of Education, our Riverside parents in attendance tonight, and all of our Rockville Center residents at home viewing from home. It is an absolute pleasure to be able to present to you tonight as a first-year principal something that's so near and dear and very important to me. I had the opportunity to address my faculty this morning, and I said to them, you know, this is every principal's dream, to be able to stand up in front of an audience and talk about all the incredible things that are happening within our building that you're doing with our students. So really, this is an opportunity for me to really just highlight all of those incredible things that they're doing to make a positive impact on kids. So PBIS program, what does it really mean, and why are we doing it? What is it? Well, you know, in talking with the other principals and sharing what I've been doing in the buildings, it's so much of what we do already. It's rooted in positivity, and really it's taking all of those wonderful things that we do and formalizing that into a plan very similar to MTSS, where we have our multi-tiers, levels of support. It's a transition from that punitive approach to discipline to a more preventative approach, a proactive approach to discipline. Research shows that traditional methods have a negative impact on students when we're trying to redirect and get desired behaviors from them. There's an emphasis on data-driven decision-making. So we meet, like Ms. Love said, we discuss, we talk about students, we put formal plans in place, we try strategies, we try different things to help students, just as we would if they were struggling in math, in reading, in science. We implement strategies for academics, we implement strategies for students with social emotional needs as well, to help them navigate those challenging situations. It's really about fostering a culture of care. And it's funny, I always tell my staff that the best thing I hear from when central office comes into my building, when the mailman comes into the building, is that there's a sense of love and joy when they come into the building. They're happy to be there. There's a good vibe in the building. And I love sharing that with my staff. And I say, it's because of you. It's because of you. It's because of the relationships that you have with one another. It's the relationships that you create with the students. And you model that, and then they, in turn, create those positive relationships with each other. It all filters through. School-wide collaboration is key to this, just as it is with anything worthwhile. PBIS incorporates our social emotional learning, our sources of strength program from K to 12. And Mr. Gavin always says this, and it really resonates with me. Discipline equals teaching. Discipline equals teaching. It means the same thing, right? When we discipline students, it's not just telling them what to do, it's showing them what to do. It's modeling good behavior for them. It's modeling positivity. And that, again, it filters through the staff, it filters through the children. It's about people and relationships. So I would be remiss if I did not highlight my PBIS team, my social worker, Lisa Panabienko, school psychologist, Michelle Stegman, my school counselor, Alyssa Brenner. They have been instrumental. It was July, I'm sitting in the building all by myself. These were the people that came to meet with me to help me get this off the ground. And then, of course, the Riverside staff is incredible for just really embracing this, seeing this as an opportunity to, again, enhance the relationships that we have in the building and to really just breed positivity throughout the whole entire school. So PBIS is a multi-tiered approach, and like I said, it's to do so for social emotional learning, to give kids skills and strategies to help navigate challenging situations, but also to create a positive atmosphere that's more preventative than it is reactive. So just as we did for our MTSS program last year, we started off with we wanted to establish a strong Tier 1 core level of support for our students school-wide. And then, of course, we have Tier 2 and Tier 3 for when more intense interventions are needed. So year one was to establish, our year one goal was to establish a strong tier one system of support. And really, if you see here, we have our community agreement for Riverside Pride. And if you look, each letter, preparation, respect, integrity, determination, enthusiasm, it's all about community. It's a community agreement. It's we. This is what we do when we're in this building. This is how we act and how we treat each other when we're here. It establishes a true culture of care in the building. It's about relationships. It's about how we treat each other. There's a structure in place. There's clear expectations. Again, it's collaborative. And it's that community agreement that this is what we do when we're in class. It's wonderful when I walk into a kindergarten classroom or a first grade class and they say, Mr. Zappia, I showed Riverside Pride today by, holding the door for someone or helping them out with their homework or helping them in this way or that. It's the language that they use, right? It's formalized, it's tangible now, right? It's something that it becomes part of what, like I said, the culture of that classroom, the culture of the building is. So again, to expand on our tier one core level, we have expectations throughout the building. And again, it's all phrased in the positive. It's not we don't do this, we don't do that. It's we arrive at school on time. We treat others the way we want to be treated. We're honest. We make positive choices. And this just kind of outlines, this matrix outlines all of those expectations in all the different areas of the school building. And it's wonderful. Like I've used this at lunchtime presentations in the gym just to show the students. I've referred to this for our bus students as well. So it's specific, it's deliberate, it's language that's specific to where they are in the building, and the students relate to this. And this is posted within every single classroom in the building, as well as the community agreement that you saw earlier, Riverside Pride, as well as around the buildings and in the hallways. So Ms. Love spoke about the training that we attended yesterday, restorative practice. And this right now is my goal for next year, to continue to enhance our restorative practice approach to make Riverside Pride even stronger than it is right now. And what really resonated with me from from yesterday's training was that restorative, when you first hear it, you think, oh, it's to correct something. It's reactionary, but no, it's not. It's proactive. It's preventative, right? It's about that culture, establishing those relationships in advance so that we can avoid difficult situations or avoid conflict. It allows students to have positivity in place, strategies in place in advance so that those things can be avoided. And it's looking at discipline through the lens of empathy, which truly resonated with me. And when I spoke to my staff this morning, it really resonated with them as well. It's about when a student is maybe misbehaving in class, it's not about trying to correct the behavior as our first approach. It's why are they doing that? What's the reason for that? And then approaching it from that perspective. How can we help this student? There's probably a reason why there's probably something wrong as to why they're acting this way. It's a cry for help. What can we do to help them out? Again, it's about empathy, positive relationships, academic engagement, and of course there is that conflict resolution component as well. But with restorative practice, that restorative, like the restorative circles, that's only 20% of it. It's the 80% that is the preventative, right? It's how we phrase, how we talk to students. It's about how we rephrase and use affective statements rather than the statements that we default to sometimes. So even a positive statement like great job, that sounds wonderful. We say it all the time. But how can we rephrase that so that it has more meaning? I really love the way, great job, I really love the way you held the door for your friend right there. It made me feel great. So now that student did something great for their friend, but now they know that it had a greater effect. It made me feel great as well. So again, empathy, that approach of empathy and reframing the way that we speak to each other. Not just students speaking to students, but adults speaking to adults too, right? It's the whole culture of the building, and that resonates throughout. So a great component to PBIS program is our reward system in place as well. So students love this. This is the extra fun part, right? This is the part that they get to see, and I love when this bulletin board right here is right outside my office, and it's wonderful when I see the kids pointing and counting how many class rewards that they've earned. And it's important to note, it's not a competition. We're not competing for a prize in the end, but it's really the recognition that they love. They love the recognition. They love getting recognized for that. So it increases their motivation. It increases engagement. It provides that immediate reinforcement for the great thing that they did as a class. It helps create that tangible connection that I spoke to before, and it encourages that sustained positive behavior, which increases self-esteem, and it fosters that positive culture, that sense of accomplishment. It's there on display for all to see. So the kids really do take great pride in that. So we have the system of school-wide rewards, where each classroom receives their Riverside Raptor jar, where they get their different marbles for accomplishing, acts of kindness, for doing acts of kindness. They earn points for achieving teacher-set goals, so they might get extra recess or a homework pass if they've earned a certain amount of marbles. This is very important to note. All staff can give pride points. So it's not just the classroom teacher. It's the teacher aides on the playground. It's the teacher assistants at lunchtime. It's Mr. Tim, the custodian. He can give pride points out also. It's everybody in the building. It's community. It's community-based. So kids know that anyone could be watching and they can do good for anyone. And of course, the bulletin board displays their achievements, their Riverside Raptor achievements. There's also individual awards. So students can be recognized daily through nominations for Riverside Pride. So we have Riverside Pride slips in the main office, and any staff can nominate a student for positive behavior. And they do this without letting the student know. They'll write out the slip, write their name on it, write the act of kindness that the student did, and then hand that into the main office. And then every Friday morning, we'll announce that we bring in the junior announcers, and they announce all of our Riverside Pride recipients. They come down to the main office, and we get a nice picture for them and post it on Instagram. But the important thing is I always have a conversation with the group. I make them read the slip, because they're so excited sometimes they don't even read it. You got to read the slip, be proud of what you did, and make sure that you share it with your family when you go home. And then every Friday afternoon, this is the big event at Riverside, we pull names out of the hat, and we announce students that get the opportunity to go down to the Riverside Pride book vending machine, which I want to thank Miss Love for all of her support for that, and getting us and helping us to attain that machine over the summer. It's great. It's great. It has a beautiful spot right over in the library. The kids admire it. They love taking trips down to it. It really breeds positivity. So positive outcomes. We've noticed that students demonstrate fewer negative behaviors, which in turn helps them perform better academically, socially, and emotionally. Teachers report that they're feeling less stressed out dealing with unfortunate incidents that might occur between students in school. But they also are better equipped to deal with them because we have those skills and strategies in place. We have that common language that we can use with students. Schools that tend to use PBIS often have fewer discipline referrals, which leads to a more positive school climate and culture, which is what we're seeing here at Riverside as well. So what do our teachers think about Riverside PBIS? So I'm going to focus on the first quote, and of course this will be posted on the website and everyone can read them at a later time. But that first quote in red really resonated with me. This came from a specials teacher in our building who is in between multiple buildings. She said, "It makes it so much easier for specials when the management systems aren't class specific. And it really sends the message that school is a cohesive environment where the expectations are the same across the board rather than just in their classroom." So it's that consistency, it's that common language that's so important that anyone, when they walk into that building, can use with students. It's just what we do. It's what we do. And of course, our students chimed in with their thoughts on it as well. So I will focus on Mrs. Brooks' third grade class. Riverside Pride is when you treat people with kindness and respect. Really, it just boils down to that, right? It really boils down to treat others the way you want to be treated yourself. So next steps for PBIS. Well, we've already spoken about collaboration, which has begun within all of the elementary buildings. It's been wonderful to meet with my colleagues at the elementary level and to discuss plans for PBIS and to help them roll it out. I'm very much looking forward to their perspectives on it now that we have this team in place where we can speak to it and really enhance the program together collectively. We'd like to integrate parental involvement into our existing PBIS team structure. We'd also like to enhance the expectations by incorporating more student leadership and leveraging student council, which is something we've already started to do at Riverside. With our student vote, our theme was Riverside Pride. How do you show Riverside Pride? And we had our student council lead a pep rally for that in our auditorium this year, right on the day of the vote, which was wonderful. And we'd also like to implement branching minds into our PBIS plan to address Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions.
I have to thank you. You did such a wonderful job, and I know we're going to move on to the next slide, but we discussed this in the summer, and you took it and ran with it, and it also speaks to the amount of respect that Mr. Zappia has from his colleagues, that as he reported out each month to our other principals, they're just all in and can't wait to dive into this work with you next year. So you did an incredible job. Thank you so much. Thank you.
It's been truly wonderful to watch this whole entire journey unfold. So thank you very much. So as we continue to think about what our next steps are for MTSS as a whole, and specifically for my side of this right now would be our core instruction. We want to continue the work, of course, that we're doing at the elementary level, and we want to also increase and enhance what we're doing at the secondary level. So at the secondary level, it is our recommendation that we continue with our ELA progressions and our ELA book clubs in the middle school, moving into 9th and 10th grade, and continuing on into 11th grade. We would like to continue our book clubs as well. Student choice is paramount in increasing the love of reading and the love of writing, and to just have them read widely and connect to themes and engage in conversations around that will just be so beneficial for them. We want to engage in a social studies audit of our work from 6 through 12 to see where we are, see where we're aligned, see how we can make it exactly what Mr. Zappia was talking about, a cohesive environment where the expectations are the same across the board. We will continue our work with our science standards and ensuring that we are ready to go, and we have the assessment practices and the pedagogy needed in order to be able to tackle the new assessments that we will be taking, not at the end of next year, but the following school year from there. The elementary will also engage in progressions and book clubs. We will also engage in our social studies audit, but that's kind of being wrapped in with what we're doing with our integrated units of study. So we're engaging in our social studies practices as we're creating our integrated units of study. We would like to move into K2 inquiry units where we're aligning through themes and through skills what we're doing in social studies and science to ELA to make thematic units that are also inquiry driven. We would like to continue and enhance our 3 to 5 word work that we started this year, and I have to give kudos to the teachers because asking them to think about how we can play with words and how we can have fun with words and how we can work with spelling principles and also morphology. It was a lot for this year, and they handled it like rock stars, and next year we're going to do even better. And what's important to note here is that our words are connected with everything that we're learning. So it's not a separate and part word study program. It's embedded and integrated, so students are learning the words that they're reading and what we want them to speak and what we want them to write with. And then as far as our Tier 3 parental involvement, we want them involved from the core instruction out, so that's why it's there, but we'll also come back to that with progress monitoring when we're ready to talk about that.
And for our next year for positive behavior, I think really all 3 of these bullet points apply to secondary and elementary, in that we're looking at working on our restorative circles and restorative practices, proactive practices, and looking at our positive behavior intervention supports, working with our Sources of Strength program to take everything to the next level. And I think the picture of the heart says it all, that we want our students to be at peace. We want them to feel cared for. We want them to feel comfortable in their learning environment and to feel supported. That's our goal. And none of the other things can happen if they're not walking into their classroom, walking into their school, feeling that way. And so our goal is to continue to work on that and work on developing empathy across the board.
And then finally, we want to continue our work with progress monitoring, moving it up into the secondary level. First, we would like to examine the schedules that we have at the secondary level and the structure of the support classes. We want to also look at what we're doing in the support classes and ensuring that we're working on executive functioning, we're working on skill development, and we're working on content as well. Our students at the secondary level display these areas of need specifically. So to really organize our schedules and organize our support classes in a way that we can deliver this kind of instructional support and then provide progress monitoring with it. And as Ms. Love said prior, we would like to, at the elementary level, begin moving from just Tier 3, having formalized goals and intervention and progress monitoring in branching minds, to also our Tier 2, our students who require Tier 2 support, having that same process done for them as well in a very formalized way. All of which will be supported through professional learning and collaboration by all members of our team K-12, both faculty and administration. Yeah, so we thank you very much for this time. I know it was rather long, but there's so much for us to share. So thank you for your patience and your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Comments or questions from board members? We can just jump in and, yeah.
Thank you all for being here. And it was long, but clearly there was a lot going on, right? So it takes a while to go through all of the different elements. K-12, academic, behavioral, there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle. I feel like the theme has been continual building on, things we start and then we build the next year and we build the next year. So I'm happy to hear that we're going to be looking a little bit more at the Tier 2 kids. I think in particular, those are sometimes the kids that get lost in the shuffle a little bit. They might be able to do a little bit better or need a little bit more support, but their grades they're doing fine enough that they kind of skate by. So I'm just curious about a couple of things. The branching minds that we're using, does that sort of file or database exist for the kids throughout their K-12 journey? So their third grade teacher can see the previous year and their fourth grade teacher. Is that how it works?
Yes, yeah, exactly. It's like an electronic file that keeps all of the meetings, all of the goals, all of the interventions, shows the progress that the child has made from day 1 to whatever day that we're looking at it. So it will carry through their entire journey with them.
And at this point, is it just K through 8? Are we using branching minds at the high school or no?
Right, so right now, we began with the K through 5 this school year, establishing those goals, the intervention, the progress monitoring. Next year, we are rolling up to the middle school, and we're going to start with 6th grade in the beginning of the school year, and see where we are, assess, ebb and flow with the team, and then start progressing into the older grades as well. With then the anticipation, once we get everybody in there, we have to then see how does it work at the high school level for us, and would this be appropriate for us? I just would want to keep all of their information.
Right. So in the intervening time, particularly for the high school students, I know you talked a little bit about having weekly meetings for students we're identifying as having particular difficulty. But for those middle of road, maybe Tier 2 kids, do we have anything in place currently that checks in with teachers, or aside from progress reports and report cards?
Yeah. So I think there's a few things that happen too, because typically by middle school, for example, our referrals for special ed might be 10% of what they would be at the elementary level, because we're working on all of this through elementary school, and we identify students if we need to at that level. Usually by the middle school, students, for the most part, who have been identified through special education or receiving special education, and there may be a small number from that point on that will require special education. So there's a piece of this that allows us to meet the threshold if we do need to classify a student, because we do have to show that we've provided interventions with progress monitoring, and as a district, we've done everything that we can to meet the needs of students with our intervention plan, which is really, in theory, where this all came from, right? So that's why we see some of these progress monitoring tools really focused on the K-8 student, where at the high school level, typically at that point, if a student requires special education, it's not necessarily an academic issue. It could be more of an emotional type of issue at that point. So I think that's also why you see sometimes the progress monitoring tools change, and it does become very much a conversation of, we have the grades of the students, we have the progress reports of the students for the academic component, but if a student is struggling at that point, perhaps they need a support class, perhaps they need some strategies within the class, and in these PPS meetings that we have, whoever the staff is that's following up will follow up, let's say perhaps with a math teacher, and say the student's struggling, let's say with word problems, how are we working on breaking that down? What types of strategies does the student need? And again, maybe perhaps they're not a student that's classified, but they're a student that at this point they're hitting a wall, or maybe they just have underlying anxiety about math because through their life math was just a challenge for them, and how are we helping them work through that? So it really becomes very specific conversations about students and what are the things impacting them. There usually is an executive functioning or emotional component, and that's why it becomes in a way a little bit more soft as far as the data goes, because you're dealing more with emotion and behavior sometimes than just straight academics. So I think that's also why you see the progress monitoring tools change at that point. So that's why it's so important. You know, if you look at the students who are in branching minds, we might meet on those students every 4 to 6 weeks. At the secondary level, we're talking about meeting every week. And that's because you're looking at a different type of data that you couldn't wait that many weeks to meet on a student that maybe it's strictly an anxiety situation or you know, emotionally based situation for many of our students that they need our support. So that's why we meet so much more often. Does that answer your question?
It does, and I think that's great. I think at the high school level in particular, sometimes it just becomes a snowball. Like there's one thing starts and then it just becomes harder to maintain, as you know, with 9 courses and everything else the kids are doing. So
And I think as a professional group, we agree with you and see that. And that's why we're moving, the meetings at the high school are very thorough, but they will be at a higher frequency weekly, which at this time, there's a little bit more time in between the meetings, and we're realizing that we can't wait 3 weeks, let's say, to meet on a high school student. Like if we're speaking about the student this week, even though there's follow-up and people are absolutely talking on a daily basis about what student needs, this formal type of meeting where there's formal follow-up, there's an administrator involved, all of those things, that has to happen weekly for us to be as effective as we want. So that will be something that we're looking to institute next year.
that's great. I appreciate that. Thank you.
I'll jump in. Thank you, all of you, for making some very complex and comprehensive programs understandable and accessible to us. It is a lot to cover, but I'm getting it. Every time I hear it, I learn a little bit more. And what I think rings true across, whether it's an academic intervention or a disciplinary situation, is the proactive nature of this entire program, because as a parent or as a student, you don't want to wait for the emergency, right? You don't want to wait for a failure. You don't want to wait for some disciplinary or academic issue that you've got to respond to. This is sort of catching students before we get to that point. And to your point about consistency, how do we, or how have you been able to keep the energy so high for these sorts of programs? It seems like we're adding a lot to teacher and staff workload, right? We're asking them to, identify students, design interventions, progress monitor. How do we keep the enthusiasm and the consistency and also balance teacher workload and expectations?
I feel like
It's a hard question.
Well, I think anytime we unroll something, right, we roll something out, we want to consider our human capital, right? And how do we work through that? I think with MTSS, there are some added pieces that we haven't had in the past. On the special ed side, we're so grateful because if we do have a referral for a student, we have information that we've always dreamed of that's aligned. We can look at a student in a class, in a grade in one building versus the grade for the entire district and ask ourselves, is this second grader functioning a little bit lower than the other students in their class, but actually district-wide, they're in the average range? Like, this type of information is so important to us so that we are properly identifying students. So in that way, it's very valuable and helpful and a time saver in many ways. It's difficult if you don't have a system like this in place to collect the appropriate data that we need for special education. But as far as utilizing branching minds and collecting the data and working with AIMSweb, we're working that into the schedules of the staff who are the key people in each building who will be collecting the information and helping to run the IST meetings so that it's part of their workday and integrated into their schedule, so that it's not necessarily in addition to for those key point people in each building.
So it's streamlining in some ways what they were
Yeah.
already doing.
Yeah. And then the behavioral pieces, the buy-in of I feel so effective as a teacher because my students are so, they're following the Riverside Pride and what that means. So there's time to put in to get these types of things running, but the time that you get back because you're not working with, behaviors in the class or at specials or when kids get back from recess, those types of things. We're saving time in other areas that we're putting in the beginning by doing these
Jeannie's
programs.
point is well made because one of the things that we've heard from teachers in the past is a disjointed approach doesn't work for anyone. And so this is really trying to make sure that we have a cohesive approach through PBIS, through MTSS, across the buildings. So I think that's really, part of the sell to teachers in terms of your question about keeping energy up. There's a consistency of language and approach that will allow us to streamline work like Jeannie talked about a little bit. And also, we're hoping to solve some of the problems that teachers have brought to us in the past. Like, for example, I am the math AIS teacher. I'm not sure. I haven't seen so-and-so. I'm not sure how they're doing necessarily in the classroom. But when you have these meetings, when you have the system in terms of branching minds, you have that all together so that there's, as Jeannie said, less time worried about getting information and more time acting on it.
That's good. That's valuable. And to your point about seeing trends, right? So you have individual interventions, but you also have a universal screening. So you have a basis of comparison. And just to sort of back up and zoom out for any parents for whom this is entirely new, this is entirely separate from special ed, from, right? I mean, this is for all students in every building.
It's for all students, and the intent is actually to make sure that students get all of the interventions they need, and that if we are identifying a student for special education, that we've demonstrated that we've provided every intervention that we possibly could, and if a student is classified, then we know that it's based on information that they truly do need special education. And so the students we're classifying, we're identifying appropriately, and the students who are receiving the support, are getting the support that they need, and we're making sure they're making growth.
Right. And I think it may also have a benefit of sort of normalizing the idea of support, right? Because if it's a universal need, it's a universal practice. Every student, every learner needs support at various levels of their education.
Right, we're here to support them. So
Right.
we want them to know that's exactly why we're here.
Yeah, and particularly in a district where, as curriculum gets more rigorous and classes are accelerated, support is absolutely available when a student feels that they are, looking for that. And then my other point was, I loved that you have the opportunity for older students to get involved with younger students. I think the more opportunities for that really is such a benefit. We see it in the summer program when we have older counselors, working with the younger students. They look back at their own elementary years, and the students, see a positive role model. So how would you, I think there was mention about student council being involved. How would that work?
We have some ideas with our Sources of Strength program. We were thinking of potentially carnival days at the elementary level where each period of the day, a grade level might go outside, and we have the Sources of Strength wheel set up by tables, and we have high school and middle school students making crafts with our elementary students who could rotate through during their grade level period and have some interaction with their older peers and learn a little bit more about Sources of Strength and have some really fun takeaways. We were thinking about a nice activity like that at each elementary school. And we were just discussing that in our last Sources of Strength meeting. So we do meet high school, middle school, elementary. Mrs. Ramsey and I, we meet every month or so with, all of the levels of Sources of Strength together so that we could work on ideas like that. So that was one that we came up with as an
Great. And
example. Yeah.
Another example of aligning, right? That common
Yes.
language that students hear early in their education, and it continues on throughout the secondary. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you all. Couple of quick questions and then a couple of quick comments. For the slide that had the notification for K to 5, we had the letter, sample letter. Is that something that we aim to do now for 6 to 8 as well going forward? Will we utilize the same sort of communication approach? I know they have many more teachers in 6 to 8 than they do obviously K to 5, but I'm just curious what your plan is for that type of parental communication for the older grades.
So right now, we're still in the process of formalizing our framework and working on who is in support classes and what is happening in the support classes and what are those needs of the students in those support classes. Once we're able to really identify that and outline that framework, then we will be able to begin talking about the formalized communication with that. So part of the communication has to be parental contact in some way, which would be through phone call or having the parents come in, and then there should be some kind of written communication home talking about what those tier 3 interventions are and what is happening. So those are all things to come and things that we will work on with the secondary level about.
All right, thank you. I think that would be helpful, especially when we start to get to places where there's more choices and, they're pursuing electives or things that are going to help them kind of create their, get to their path, their goals. I think that would be helpful there too. So I love seeing the sample letter. I think that would be great to expand that. For the technology that we utilize, the branching minds and the Ames web, do our teachers all get training on those programs? Are they all on them? Do they all have access to it? How does that work?
Okay, so currently, right now, everybody, K-8, does have access to branching minds. The reading teachers are the one, and the math teachers are the ones that really have been trained in branching minds. The administration has also been trained in branching minds. So the next stage for next year would be, and I'm sorry, the teachers that have have learners who are tier 3 have had coaching around that, right? Now the goal would be for all of our teachers in K-5 to have that training. We're going to offer that as PM hours, I believe. We're working with the company right now to see how we can offer. It's a very quick training, so give them the training in that. And then at the secondary level, we're going to start with the person who's going to help us with the ISTs, right? And the staff that will be immediately impacted, and then we'll build out from there. And I think that goes to Dr. Downing's question before, like how do we maintain enthusiasm? We start small, and then we start to move out like a wave, and we have little successes, and then eventually doing all those little actions right lead to, the bigger action coming to be, and everybody feeling not overwhelmed, but really supported throughout the process. As far as Ames Web goes, really, the teachers that need to be trained in Ames Web would be the teachers who are delivering the progress monitoring tool. It's only one teacher per child that should be giving it.
Okay.
And that is what is recommended by any progress monitoring tool for the consistency of, giving the measurement.
So I understand what you're saying, one teacher per child, but then when we get to the older grades and they don't only have one teacher per child, how
Right.
does that get
Right, yeah,
changed there?
excellent, yes, great. So just like what Mrs. Love was talking about before, progress monitoring is going to start to shift in the older grades. So a tool like AimsWeb or any progress monitoring tool really monitors the progress of students' foundational skills in reading or writing or mathematics. So as we start to get into the older grades, we're not really seeing the foundational lack necessarily. What we're seeing is more of a comprehension and the work around the cognitive thinking that goes around with comprehension. Or if you're looking at executive functioning, your progress monitoring will look different than using a tool such as branching minds. It would be repeated measures of being able to stay organized, for example, or being able to replicate using colored folders to be able to, organize my things.
So, Dr. Moriarty, is it fair to say as the students get older, the type of data that we look to see and we look to use, like grades, would be an important piece there. Assignments would be an important piece. AimsWeb may not necessarily assess what we're looking to assess at that time. So it might be appropriate for some sixth grade students, but I wouldn't necessarily think it might be appropriate for eighth or 10th grade students. So what we try to do is we try to make sure that the data that we're using is appropriate to the student's developmental readiness, developmental skills, and what we're trying to get across in terms of either skill development, executive functioning improvement, or content acquisition.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful too, as we keep growing and going forward, that we get an idea of how that may look different in the K-5 world than it does in the 6 to 8 or the 6 to 12. So all these things are all great things and obviously growing and going in the right direction. Because we mentioned Northwell, I just want to kind of go back to that because I know we've talked about having a presentation again, but more importantly than a presentation at a board meeting, I think it's important that our families are constantly reminded about this resource. Whether it's, it's going to be summer and here's the summer hours, maybe it's something to kick off the year, because I think it's one of those things that we all know it, but families go through different stages of life and they might need it now but didn't need it then, and they know it's there but they don't know how to access. I know our website has great information, but I think that we should be consistently educating families about this resource because we invest money into it, and I think it's a really great resource for families. So I just want to kind of bring it back on the radar that we do that more often.
Yeah, absolutely. And our mental health staff really does a wonderful job. Like, they know our kids, and whether it be that there's, something happening at home, there's some type of duress at home, or the students just, having some difficulty with, internal, regulation. We, on a weekly basis, speaking with our psychologists and our social workers, and we're referring families all the time to Northwell. So 100% we will do that, and it's such a great idea. Thank you about the reminder for the summer. But our numbers are really high in that we're making sure that our families get those connections for care. And again, on a weekly basis, we refer families, even if they just need a change of a mental health counselor, and they just need some help finding someone who's a good match, and they're switching over from someone that they've been using for a while to someone that needs to be seen at the clinic as an emergency. We refer and we make sure that our families have access and we support them. Our staff even sometimes will meet our families at the clinic. So
Thank you.
they really go the extra mile. And that's a credit to them. They're so devoted. Yeah.
I appreciate it, and we're so proud to offer it to our families, and I know your staff has been fantastic about it, so I just always want to make sure our families, know what's available to them, because it is such a great resource. Just like another last quick comment, I love Riverside Pride. I think it's going to be hard for the other schools to come up with coin a phrase that's as fitting.
They're going to use it.
They should.
They're using the pride.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's great. I think, I think the other schools will really benefit from this. Thank you so much for all of your hard work on it. I think it's fantastic. One suggestion I had was maybe having some level of peer-to-peer nominations for good behavior, because I think it is nice for behaviors that happen not always in an adult eye. That's really what integrity is about, is doing something without needing somebody to be watching. And I think that for kids to be able to recognize other kids' good behaviors and be able to, support their peers that way might be another level of great, just cheerleading here within that program. So just a suggestion for peer-to-peer.
I love that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for all your hard work. Thank you, all three of you.
Thank you. The presentation was excellent, and I understand that this was a mountain, right? MTSS is no small task, and I think the amount of work that has been done to bring these systems into the district over the last 2 years has just been incredible and excellent. So thank you for that work. My handwriting is terrible, so excuse me. So look at this. One thing that I really appreciated in the presentation when you were talking about scheduling is how intentional the scheduling at the elementary level is, really just to ensure that our students are in the general education classroom to the fullest extent, especially for all their core instruction, and that those tier 2 and tier 3 pullouts are occurring at time where they're not missing, doing that work with their peers and with their teacher. I'm looking forward to seeing how Tier 2 will evolve at the elementary level, again, with the focus being on Tier 3. So I'm looking forward to hearing about that. One other area that I feel pretty strongly about with this work, and I know that we've started doing work with it, revolves around how we're engaging our families in the MTSS process. I appreciate that we are sending out communication that your child is receiving these services. Obviously important for parents to know that. But what I'm really wondering about is how we can create a better system or implement a better system that really brings in the idea of co-creation, that the parent is part of the process. Where you think of your child, you've got your home and you've got school. And I think the more that we can connect home and school, especially for our students who are struggling academically, behaviorally, the better the outcomes that we're going to see. I think if we, as a district, we're not here just to educate our students, but we do have to educate our families as well, just to building their capacities. And I also think as the educator, it's important to hear the parent's story, because that parent knows the story from birth until now, where we have snippets and pieces, especially at transition years, like looking at 6th grade, looking at 9th grade, where the school might not really have a great understanding of what came before then, and really leaning into those parents' funds of knowledge and how they can, support a plan being created and their capacity to support that plan at home. One thing that I did a little bit of learning about over the past couple of years with regards to parent engagement is something called academic parent-teacher teams. And to me, it seems like a really novel idea, especially at the elementary level, where instead of just having back-to-school night and parent-teacher conferences, kind of reframing that time. And I understand time is part of our teacher's contract, so not in addition to what is already there, but really being very intentional about what that time looks like, bringing parents in, letting them see a snapshot of this is where your child is now. This is a skill we're working on for the next 3 months. This is how you can support the skill at home, and really teaching the parents how to support that skill, I think will boost our Tier 1 instruction and would potentially help with Tier 2 and Tier 3. So just something that I think really could be quite impactful. Another comment, just from looking from the presentation, talking about just specifically with like the Big 6 literacy and some of the bullet points below, but I think kind of go into all aspects of education, not just literacy, revolving around or thinking about culturally responsive and sustaining pedagogy. I think we've, not us specifically, but just education in general, K-12 education in general, has kind of failed our communities on what that actually means. I think there's a lot of misconception and misinterpretation about what goes on when we talk about being culturally responsive, culturally sustaining, and how important that work really is. Like, it is all brain-based work. It's not indoctrination. It's not all these other things that people point to, and it gets a bad name and it gets shied away from. But it is something I've been thinking a lot about too, and thinking about how do we bring that work in a very transparent way with fidelity, because we do have a very diverse student body. And when you look at people, people are cognitively wired to learn in a certain way, and that is really rooted in their culture. And if I am a person who doesn't understand other, I am who I am my culture. And if I'm not explicitly trained or talking about how do I teach to this or this or this, I'm not doing that. And then time is lost, education is lost. So just been thinking a little bit about that. And also like with regards to purposefully play, like being cognitively responsive. How are we teaching at the primary level? What does that look like? How is that different at intermediate elementary versus secondary? And really integrating times for purposeful play, but also unstructured play. So all things related to Tier 1 instruction, I guess, is kind of where I'm sitting right now. With regards to secondary, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how the work at the secondary evolves. Again, the work at the elementary has been quite impressive. I know we named kind of looking at social studies as our next potential content area review, which I think being a social studies teacher is much needed. Thinking about looking at how we are aligning curriculum and then how we are aligning instruction at that Tier 1 level. I think instruction specifically, we really need to focus in on the K-12 framework, what the actual curriculum is, ensuring that we are teaching the curriculum like first and foremost, and then really leaning into the other part of the unwritten curriculum, right? Like the social studies practices, the literacy standards that are aligned to history and how all of that ties in. And then talking about instruction, like we have, I'm sorry, my handwriting is so bad, I was writing fast. Like the idea of like engagement, like obviously it's important to engage students, but if curriculum and instruction isn't aligned first, it doesn't matter what we're engaging because we're not hitting those marks. So I definitely look forward to seeing that audit next year. And then finally, sorry, I'm being long here too, like everyone else. Mr. Zappia, thank you so much for bringing PBIS to our schools. This is something to me that I feel like I've been a little harpy on, and also really thinking about that other arm of MTSS, right? Like we can't say we're doing MTSS if we're only focusing on the academic. We have to be doing the behavioral, the mental health. And there was something you said during your presentation, I wish I wrote it down. I can't like remember anything these days, but it really, it's bad. It really made me think back to, I think it was 2 years ago when I went with Mr. Van Zandt and Dr. Hood to Albany to a symposium on family and community engagement. And we walked in on the board, it just said Maslow before Bloom. And I looked at it and it was very striking to me because like that's very obvious. Like if your basic needs, not just your physical needs, but like your mental health needs, your need to belong, if that's not being met, you're not learning. And I think that's what PBIS really is to make sure that our students come into that building every day with that their mental health needs met, feeling like they belong, they're part of a community, that we have given them the success criteria. This is what you need to do to be a positive member of our community. And really just identifying those attributes, the dispositions you want to see, and teaching into that, to your point, instead of teaching away from the negative behaviors. I'm really excited to see it scaled, especially at Covert. Not that we don't have great behavior there, but I'm just really excited to see how that's going to scale across. And I'm actually really intrigued to see how it's going to level up to the middle school and high school, how it will look different, and how it's really just going to help our learners, to flourish. So overall, thank you so much for the work, and I really look forward to seeing what's to come.
Thank you. As it's been stated, oh, sorry, go
I
ahead.
just wanted to say thank you so much for your support.
Yeah. As it's been stated multiple times already, it's been a big ask, and it's been great being informed throughout the process last year and this year in terms of the work that's been done already, and we look forward to you coming back next year and reporting back on the progress that you've laid out for us tonight. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Okay, items for discussion, turning to policies. At stage 1, we have 1331, duties of the district clerk. Any comments or questions?
I have to agree with the bottom statement that this is a partial listing of the duties of the district clerk. She does a million other things just as well. I wondered in terms of the legal wording of letter B, we have everything on board docs now. Does that's,
She's still prepared, she's using a document or a system to create the minutes.
so that's,
So you still have to, and the board docs, you kind of create it by what's in there, but you still have to create, but there has to be minutes.
got it. So it lines up with what we're doing. That's all I wanted to know.
Great, thank you. Any other comments or questions on 1331? All right, agreed. As it's been already stated tonight, Mrs. Ciliberti, you're much appreciated. Thank you. 1520, we have special meetings of the Board of Education. Any comments or questions?
Just thought the second paragraph was clunky with the note. I mean, I feel like it should just say, like a continuation.
Is that an internal note?
That was just an internal note? Oh, okay,
Right.
Good.
okay.
Agreed. So I think if everyone's okay with it, what we're going to do is just start with another, in an emergency,
Yes.
right?
I think
Right.
that's the
Take
better
everything.
option.
No, then.
You would,
And the, another
whole
option,
paragraph.
that whole section's gonna, like, right?
so
Or
the-
it should just say,
Well, it's
Well, it's up to
saying
us.
two different
right?
things.
Yeah, so.
it is two different
We
things.
have to
It's one or
choose-
the other.
Right.
Right.
I like the second one.
I do too. So is everybody okay with looking at the red
Right.
line,
Yeah,
starting with in an emergency and keeping that one?
yep.
Okay.
And
So
striking
take
the
out the
And
first
striking the
sentence,
rest.
Take out the note, another option is, and semicolon is out, and everything else is there.
Okay?
Yep.
Okay to move this with that change?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. At stage 2, we have 1334, appointment and duties of the claims auditor. Okay to move this?
Yes.
1339, duties of the internal auditor.
Good.
Okay?
Yep.
At stage 3, we have 6440, negotiations. Good to move to approval?
Yes.
Yes.
Next meeting. 6450, theft of services. Good to move.
Yep.
Yep.
6460, jury duty.
Good.
Good. And 6520, workers' compensation.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Opportunity for superintendent, Mr. Gavin.
Thank you. As we enter the last month of the 23-24 school year, I wanted to reflect on so many of the positive things and events we've had this year and start looking forward to some really great events in the month of June. So on stage, we have had tremendous concerts, a wonderful play in terms of Matilda, the middle school show of Little Mermaid, also amazing. Tonight, right now, as it's probably over. But we had Center Stage, and I can't wait for it to go tomorrow night. Center Stage is truly one of my favorite events. It shows the special and unique nature of Rockville Center, where we come and we celebrate everyone. So I look forward to that. Somehow they typecast me as a game show host in the play tomorrow night, which may or may not be a stretch depending on your opinion, but we'll leave that for later. I also wanted to thank the PTA. We just had our PTA President's Dinner, and it reminds us of the strong supportive partners we have in our PTA. They volunteered their time to support students across this district. Thank you, and we appreciate you. I want to shout out Jackie Cahalan and Lauren as well for setting up the dinner and doing a great job. Lauren Cruz for setting up that as well. Stepping away from the stage and dinners, I also want to tell everyone that in the digital realm, we had our first students take AP Computer Science test the last few weeks. We've had our first students compete in the elementary hackathon, and tomorrow, our high school students compete for the first time in an interscholastic hackathon at Bethpage High School. So I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be a lot of fun. I also want to thank Dr. Diaz and our middle school students who have been and our middle school social studies teachers who've been experimenting using AI in social studies class, learning more about the Cold War. So actually running through simulations of the Cold War, utilizing an AI that has taken on the persona of Nikita Khrushchev. So that's pretty cool. Our students also have completed the last of our TED Talk events, sharing their passion about diverse concepts, such as the benefit of having a pet to retail or shopping therapy, as one young lady from Watson decided to talk about, which was amazing. And thank you to all of our club advisors for guiding our students through the process of speaking about the things that they are passionate about. Congratulations to our morning news team at Southside High School who earned honorable mention in the BASH Awards, which is a broadcasting awards. We don't hit anything with it. Don't take that the wrong way. It's just an acronym. We received honorable mention for our broadcast of the red and blue hockey game. So that was something that was shouted out about how technical they were during the hockey game and what a great job that they were able to do. So thank you to our morning news team and all the people involved with that for giving students yet another experience that can translate to a passion down the road and to a potential area of growth and future study. I also wanted to congratulate our Long Island champion boys lacrosse team that won last night. For the first time in 20 years, we have not only a county champion boys lacrosse team, but we also have a Long Island champion. The next game is Saturday, 3 o'clock at Middletown, New York. I went the wrong direction when I was Googling it before. Middletown, New York High School, where we play Warwick High School. So that's 3 o'clock Saturday. If we win that game, the next game after that is in Albany. I don't know who we would be playing at that point. That would be Wednesday. I do want to let everyone know that that would potentially conflict if we win that game. We don't have to necessarily get there yet, but with the Varsity S dinner. So we're looking at different options for how Varsity S may need to be done because a large number of the students that would be attending Varsity S would not be there, and neither would their parents. So we want to be respectful of that and make sure that we're respectful for everyone and do it in a way that we can truly celebrate the entire class of 2024 and their athletic accomplishments. Upcoming events. So next week we are filled and packed and racked. Monday we have senior awards. Tuesday is spring concert 1 at the high school. Like I said, Wednesday is Varsity S, to be determined. Thursday is spring concert 2, and Friday is one of my favorite events of the year where I get to go have breakfast with our valedictorian and salutatorian, with all of the other valedictorians and salutatorians across Nassau County. It's one of the best events that you have, and we get a chance to talk with their families and get a really good sense of just how amazing some of our students are. So that is my superintendent's report for tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Gavin. We have an acceptance of gift this evening.
That's right. Dr. Moriarty, can you just talk very quickly about our Ed Foundation grant, please?
Sorry, Marlo. So we have 2 grant cycles. So this is the second grant cycle for the year where our grant committee comes together. They read through the grants that our very creative and very innovative teachers write that they're asking to do more. They write these grants. The committee goes through them. We talk about them. And this group of ladies, they're just so committed. They love our community. They love our schools. They love the grants that the teachers are writing. And this grant cycle, we were able to approve 6 new projects, one of which will ask our students to partner to interview the Humans of Rockville Center by partnering with the Sandell Center, right? So it's going to be a great time, and there's a whole other array of things that our students will be doing across the district. So thank you very much to the Ed Foundation. It is very lovely to work with them every year.
Yes, thank you to the Ed Foundation. I'm looking forward to seeing that all come to fruition. May I please have a motion to accept the gift?
So moved.
Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you again, Ed Foundation. Opportunity for board members, Mrs. Messier?
I'd just like to start by thanking the community for supporting our budget. I'd also like to thank the community for their confidence in re-electing me to the Board of Education. It's really a privilege to serve and represent the community at this table. I'd also like to congratulate our actors and actresses who performed at Center Stage and also at the middle school play. Good luck to all of our musicians, and congratulations to our musicians who have already performed. I'd like to wish good luck to our boys and girls track and field team who competed tonight and will compete tomorrow at their state qualifiers. Big congratulations to the boys lacrosse team for winning the Long Island Championships. I saw Mr. Gavin at the end of the game, and I was like, I never even knew I liked lacrosse. I really enjoyed the game. I've always kind of been sour towards lacrosse just because from coaching track, a lot of my girls would leave me, and I would then see them playing lacrosse, and I would not be happy about it. And so it was really fun. It was a good time, and You know, my son is in first grade, and I've been trying to get him to play lacrosse just because I think he would like it, and he was dead set on no, he was not playing this sport. He had other things in mind, and the game was over, and he like, ditched me for like a first grader, ditched me. He was by himself with his friends, and he came over, and he just looked at me with the biggest eyes after it, and he's like, I really want to play lacrosse. So I mean, it's notable how inspiring our older athletes are for our younger athletes and what great role models they are. And it was also just so nice to see so many members of the community at the game, and especially like all the little kids. I don't know, it's just a great atmosphere, and I'm so happy for the, you know, for the team and the coaches that they won, and best of luck as you move forward. And then finally, just good luck to all of our students who have exams coming up, finals, APs, Regents exam. We wish you the best of luck. Use your resources well, study hard, and that's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Hackett?
Oh, no. By the way, you should use this in center stage, because this reminds me of that game show. This,
Yes.
from like the 70s. What was that one? I don't know, but they always used to use microphones like this. I always feel like that. I'm dating myself. Yeah, yeah, well, that's true. You don't need a microphone. If you need one, this is perfect. I wanted to thank Mrs. Celebrity for a fantastically run, again, wonderful election and budget process. Thank you so much, and to your staff, everybody that was there all day long. They're great volunteers, so thank you. I did want to mention that our former district clerk, Jackie Wong, is a new grandma. She had a granddaughter, so we always were indebted to Mrs. Wong as well, so I just wanted to congratulate her. And she said it was very fitting that her grandbaby was born around election time, so congratulations to Mrs. Wong and her family. Thank you to the community for passing our budget, and also congratulations to Mrs. Barry and Mrs. Messier, and thank you both again for re-upping. I said to Mrs. Barry, here comes years 7, 8, and 9, so she's really made a big commitment to us. Thank you, and Erica, you're on 4, 5, 6, so that's great too. I'm excited to meet Mr. McGuire tonight. I think he's going to be fantastic. I agree with Erica. Last night was just really fun. It was a great time for our community. I'm sorry to the other away fans, but they did not have as many people as we did. We packed our side of the house last night, and just all generations, current students, former students, little future students, grandparents, parents. It was amazing. We had the best time, and just no matter what the outcome had been, I think we all would have felt the word tonight is the pride. So it was great. We saw the center stage students on our way in tonight. They were so excited. So if you have time tomorrow to see that, please. That is one of our best events of the year, and they do a fantastic job. And finally, just thank you again to the Rockville Center Ed Foundation for your generous gifts and grants, and for all the teachers that submit things into the cycle. They do mean a great deal of difference to the kids. So thank you. Good luck. It's almost June. We've almost made it. Here we go. Happy summer.
Thank you. Mrs. Gruner?
Thank you. I also wanted to thank the community for coming out and supporting the budget. We appreciate it as board members, and our students greatly appreciate it, and our staff as well. And I'd also like to congratulate Mrs. Messier and Mrs. Barry. It's been great working with you this year. I'm really excited that both of you are back for another 3 years. I appreciate what you've brought to the board and what you've taught me as my first year here, so thanks for doing that. Also excited to welcome Mr. McGuire. I'm really looking forward to it. I think we've really built a lot of athletic success and pride over the past year or so, especially, I feel like, and I think this is going to carry us even further. So I welcome him and looking forward to that. And just congratulations to all of our students as they're doing their final everything, their final concerts, their final games, their final exams, you know, and our almost graduates. It's, you know, that time of year to just reflect on your accomplishments and enjoy all the hard work you've put in. So thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Downing?
Yes, I join in welcoming Mr. McGuire. We're very happy to have you join us as athletic director, and congrats to our lacrosse champions, and good luck at states. Congratulations to all of our athletes, whether your season is finished or is still going. We all know how much time goes into being a student athlete and know that we're very proud of you. Thanks very much to the Ed Foundation for the generous funding, and thanks to Dr. Moriarty, who works with the Grants Committee to develop really unique programs to enhance the education for our students. Thank you for supporting our budget. Thank you to our community. This budget makes everything else that we do possible, and thank you very much to Mr. Bartels for your financial planning and your foresight in managing this budget process. And congratulations to our re-elected Board of Trustees, Erica Messier and Kelly Barry. Thank you especially to our board president, Kelly Barry, whose steady leadership has continued this year. And we are grateful, I am grateful for all the work that you put in, all of your work behind the scenes to keep us informed and organized and to bring us to consensus on important issues. You are my trusted adult, and I thank you. Congratulations to the class of 2024. So many upcoming celebrations, as we've noticed, after exams. The end-of-year activities, the prom. I'm looking forward to seeing all of our graduates at graduation. And congratulations to all the students who are moving up from elementary to middle and middle to high school. Best of luck, break a leg to everyone at the spring concerts and center stage. Thank you so much to Ellen White and the Backyard Players for continuing this amazing community production and tradition. It just gets better every year. So get your tickets if you haven't already. Thank you.
Thank you. Likewise. Thank you again for the community for supporting the budget, and thank you for electing and entrusting me for another 3 years, and I am looking forward to working with you again for another 3 years, Ms. Messier, as well. Best of luck to all of our students and staff as they finish out the year strong. We're proud of all of you each and every day. And I think there's a road trip coming up on Saturday, so best of luck to the boys in their game. All right, opportunity for visitors. The public is reminded to address questions or remarks to the board through its president. Is requested to refrain from making any direct references to students or staff members that could be considered critical of their performance or their character. Such references to individual students or staff members are inappropriate in a public forum and should instead be conducted in private conversation with appropriate members of the staff. The public is asked to state their name and address and to please limit their time to 3 minutes.
Okay. Sarah Cooney, 91 Hempstead Avenue. I heard from several parents in the district yesterday and today that apparently the 7th grade health curriculum now includes showing a video covering gender identity ideology, and students are being asked to take notes on it. One student allegedly came home with notes on transgenderism, asexuality, pansexuality, and gender fluidity. I wouldn't normally come to the podium to repeat hearsay, but this is a matter of concern to me as I have a 6th grader and a 9th grader, and the health curriculum is taught in 7th and 10th grades. I was at this podium last year to object about the inclusion of gender identity in the 5th grade maturation program. These concerns were heard, and I note that the 5th grade maturation program has been revised, removing mention of gender identity ideology. So why is it now apparently appearing in 7th grade health classes? My questions are as follows. Is it this district's official policy to teach gender identity ideology as part of the 7th and 10th grade health curriculums? If so, on what basis? There is no mandate from the state to teach this. Why are parents being kept in the dark, and why is there no opt-out opportunity? Can the video in question be posted on the district's website like the video used for the maturation program? If it is not official policy to teach gender identity, why are teachers being allowed latitude to push personal beliefs as if they are accepted doctrine? Gender identity ideology is highly controversial and is being rejected as harmful to children because it promotes the idea that people are born in the wrong body. It is unacceptable, in my view, that this is being taught in our schools. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Cindy Vopel, Strathmore Lane, and I just actually wanted to thank you, Mr. Gavin, and to the board on behalf of all the dancers who are not here, and their parents and their families and their supporters, and they're not here because they're at dance, truly. And I wanted to thank you because it's a wonderful lesson for them to organize themselves and to come together and stand before you. And I think you've taught them a really important lesson, and they're going to be thrilled. I tried texting them, but they're so busy in dance that they don't know yet the wonderful news. So I just wanted to thank you for being so responsive and for understanding that this is important to them and for hearing their concerns and for acting so quickly on something that is really a passion project, as we mentioned before in the elementary schools for so many of them. So thank you, and we look forward to what's to come.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vopel. Mrs. Cooney, I will have no problem getting back to you on that, and I'll answer all of your questions. Be happy to do so. Okay? Like you and I have discussed before, I am of the mind that we take the perspective that all of our students are seen, heard, and respected. You and I have discussed that in the past. That's where everything emanates from. And our other job is to make sure that we're teaching the standards. So if we have erred in either one of those ways, then I will make sure that we correct it.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the minutes as listed on the agenda?
So moved.
Second? Second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Can I have a motion to adopt the financial reports as listed on the agenda?
So moved.
Second? Second. Any questions? All in favor? Aye. Can I have a motion to adopt the financial reports as listed on the, receipt of financial reports as listed on the agenda?
So moved.
Second? Second. Any questions? All in favor? Aye. Can I have a motion to approve items for action 1 through 13?
So moved.
Second? Second. Any questions? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Can I have a motion to return to exec to discuss the employment history of a particular person?
So moved.
Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening. Our next meeting is June 11th, and that's a public work session.